What is up, everybody? Brett here, bringing you into an epic free-for-all battle that I did just the other day on the steps of Isha, and I am super excited to bring you guys this battle. It devolved very quickly into two 1v1 battles, and each of them I feel were worthy of their own cast. So I'm going to do something I haven't really seen anyone else do, and I'm going to break this battle down into two videos. One from my perspective, and I think I'm going to do the second one from the Empire's perspective, because I think that their part of the battle was very interesting. Let me put it in slow-mo just for a moment here to kind of go over my army as I break it down. So my army is somewhat try-hard. It's very good at clogging up choke points, and the dwarves are good at that naturally. My front line is two iron breakers with a dwarf warrior in between them. I have a bit of a back line of two miners with blasting charges, which on the kind of the slopes of this map and the narrow choke points, they're going to be able to throw over the heads of their fellow dwarves and get value that way. My lord is Ungrim Ironfist, the Slayer King himself, with Red Ruin. He is unbreakable. I did not bring his other abilities. I didn't think the anti-large would be especially pertinent here. So I saved some gold that way. My hero core are the Runesmith with all three of his runes, and a Thane completely stripped down just for a tanky leadership unit that I like to keep in the back line most of the time, just in case they're being harassed. Now, I also brought two units of Rangers, standard Rangers. If they're going to be well protected, they don't need the extra armor that Quarrelers provide. I love the way these guys look with their cool little capes. One standard miner, which I dumped a couple chevrons into. I had some extra gold at the end. I'm going to use them layered together with Slayers, who are running out in front here with their 40 speed. But it's a tactic that I like to use to protect my back line. Very cheap miners mixed in with the very loose formation of Slayers can allow the Slayers to not take all the hits and to do the damage that you want them to do. And you'll see by the end of this, they really pay for themselves. For Regiments of Renown unit, I have the Grumbling Guard, which are almost an auto-occlude in any Dwarven matchup. They provide a Vigor aura, for those of you who aren't aware. Vigor helps keep your units from becoming tired in long, grindy matches, and they are an excellent unit. They always hit above their weight class, I find. So here is the most beautiful part, my favorite part of this army, and it was kind of like a eureka moment when I saw them in the selection screen. They're kind of mixed in here. My formation is going to sort itself out in a moment. The Scolder Guard. In multiplayer, they have such a hard time finding their niche. They are an expensive unit. They are a version of the Iron Drakes, the ones that shoot flame. I want to say they're 1,000 gold. The Scolder Guard is. The difference between them and the Iron Drakes that shoot flame is that they have a more direct, almost torpedo-like missile that very rarely misses. And their armor piercing is much more direct. They have physical resistance as well as 125 armor. So even if a unit does get into them, let's say a zombie unit, for instance, summoned by a vampire player, that's not going to do anything to these guys. They're going to stand, they're going to fight, and then when the zombies crumble, they'll still be at full health, ready to shoot again. So I get a lot of value out of these guys, and I can't wait to show you that the work they're able to do. I noticed these rogue miners are running around the back, so I'm going to bring them here in a second. And I do have two gyrocopters, standard gyrocopters with their poor accuracy, you'll see in the tooltip. But when you're shooting into blobs of units, that accuracy doesn't quite matter. Their armor piercing is not great compared to the Brimstone gun version, but we're not going to miss that here because their shots are going to be so impactful every time that we're not going to miss it. The extra gold was what I valued higher than the potential to do better armor piercing damage. So our opponent here looks like they wanted to go and engage the vampires, but instead they're going to notice that I'm coming for these Broken Tusk mob, which are not hidden on their big pigs in these three trees. They're not hidden from me. So I'm going to send my gyrocopters ahead to harass them. Their army is almost entirely Black Orcs. Black Orcs, Black Orcs, Black Orcs, Black Orcs. And a special treat here, the Crimson Killers with their dual wielding axes, looking amazing. An Orc Shaman, stripped down pretty much with just the foot of Gork. Goblin Big Boss on an Spider, and here we have Grimgor Ironhide himself, as well as the Rusty Heirs, who I did not see because of their stalk mechanic. But Grimgor Ironhide, you don't get to see him very often, but he's one of my favorite greenskin lords. I take him probably more than I should. Now, I'm going to keep it in slow-mo because things do get, once they start happening very quickly. The Empire player took up a nice position on this hill, and I don't want to go over them too much because, like I said, I'm going to break them down in a two-part battle, but I just want you to know generally what's on the field and what ends up happening. You see here these Hex Wraiths. Oh, these poor Empire Knights. Oh, they're not ready. Hex Wraiths are designed to take out guys like this. Armor piercing, they cause terror, and Empire Knights just have such bad stats. They're not going to have a good day. The Vampire player, with the Red Duke on a dragon, is coming in. He's going to try and take this hill, and the Empire player has such a commanding position that I felt like the Vampire was making a huge mistake. I was checking in and out, in and out. My gyrocopters are taking a few shots. You're not missing anything here, but I was checking in and out to see just how devastating these mortars and where is it? This steam tank would be against these vampire units. The Empire player is set up to kill vampires. He has a Bright Wizard, mortar, steam tank, 3 handgunners, and Balthazar Gelt. These are all great for taking out massive amounts of vampire units, and it was something that I was hoping he would be excelling at. The Red Duke takes a lot of shots here. So I'm going to move over to the other side of the battle. I don't want to spoil too much of what goes on here, because I am going to be looking to get in position here. And there are a number of plays that have yet to be made. So at this point, the greenskin player realizes, hey, I'm not going to catch the vampires. By the time I do that, this dwarf player will be behind me. So he's going to form ranks and attempt to meet me here in this corridor. I'm bringing the gyrocopters over to get some free shots, and I'm noticing this blob here, and at this point I can finally see the Rusty Heirs, and I'm a little worried about him stopping and shooting, but I'm going to use their bombs. For those of you who aren't aware, gyrocopters do have a limited number of bombs that they're able to drop. You can see here it does good damage. We're doing nice damage to these very expensive Black Orc units. It doesn't kill very many models at all. Black Orcs do have individually, they do have great armor at 110 and high hit points. Now this is something that the Orc player did that I really was not expecting. At this point I've got my orders in, I'm moving to take this position very defensively. But he runs in this Goblin Big Boss, and it was, as I noticed him doing it, at first it didn't make sense, and then I realized instantly what was going to happen. And that stripped down Orc Shaman here is going to get his value. And that is a huge foot of Gork. Now, lucky for me, he mostly damaged the cheapest unit on the field. He probably only did about 150 gold worth of damage to these miners, as well as, you know, maybe a couple hundred gold worth of damage to these Grumbling Guard. But the rest of my units remain unscathed, and here you see the blasting charges from these miners tearing into the armor of these Black Orcs. They are armor-piercing projectiles. Wow, here the Iron Breakers here taking up position. I angled them slightly to meet this blob, and I'm using these very cheap Dwarf Warriors to hold the center. And at this point, he's going to pop his Wah, which is giving them increased speed, melee attack, charge bonus. But because they're blob, that charge bonus isn't doing anything. They're not attacking, so that's not doing anything. And the speed doesn't really matter because they're already engaged. So the gyrocopters have taken up a rear position, and they're shooting into the backs of these units. I am recovering. I'm getting all of my units in the position that I want them to, and I'm actually pretty happy about this Dwarf Warrior here being almost like the point of the spear on my formation, and it's giving me a bit of an arrow type formation around them. And at this point I'm going to pop my Runesmith's runes to buff up my front line. My hero units are getting into combat here with Grimgor. Rangers have taken up Overwatch. They're not going to do great. Their missiles aren't made to take out units like Black Orcs, but having all of these different types of fire and engage in melee combat, they're just taking ranged fire provides negative leadership debuffs to these Black Orcs. And the sooner we get them to start routing, the better, because they are, everything about them is designed to kill our front line. And thankfully for us, we have so much fire coming in from so many directions that we are wearing them down quite quickly. Now the Shoulder Guard have taken up a beautiful position here on this slope, and in a moment they're going to begin firing into these Black Orcs and these Crimson Killers, who you see they're just chopping away at our cheap miners with blasting charges, and that's fine. We'd rather them kill blasting charge miners than get into our iron breakers, who we're going to want to stick around to the end. Thane and Ungrim lay a bit of a beating on Grimgor, and Ungrim's in here. I had popped Red Ruin, lowering his melee defense but increasing his armor piercing, which really allowed him to start hacking at these Black Orcs. So when you see 18 kills on him, that's 18 Black Orcs. Nothing else but Black Orcs. And it's about this time that I realized a moment before that I was going to be taking a charge from the Broken Tusk Mob, and the Wasp popped again. So I positioned my miners in front to take the charge, if need be, but my micro is enough on point, and you'll see what I do here in a moment. As I'm routing off all of these units, I'm switching my fire to kind of chase them off the field, and then to further harass these guys. If they're broken, I want to keep them broken. So here at the last second, I'm going to pull my Slayers through the miners, figuring that he had issued his attack orders onto the miners themselves, and I'm going to disrupt their charge. They don't get that charge bonus. The Slayers do get their charge bonus, and they're going to instantly hack down. I kept them in reserve, so they didn't have any kills before this. They're going to almost instantly hack down 12 of these very expensive Broken Tusk Mob. And at this point, I'm running them off. I'm going to pull some of my units back, giving them a bit of Overwatch fire here. And I brought in my gyrocopters to prevent this. I engaged him in melee, hoping to break him off quickly, this Orc Shaman, but he was able to get one final foot of Orc into my formation. It did some damage, but not what he was no doubt hoping for. And Grimgor himself is now broken, and he's going to try and rally, as are a lot of these Black Orcs, but I'm going to be very on point about continuously shooting them. And I'm going to switch my Shoulder Guard here. They got 65 Black Orc kills. Unbelievable. And because these are the armor-piercing anti-infantry version, these aren't the ones with the torpedoes, rather. He's still considered a small unit, an infantry-sized unit, because he's not on his mount. So they're going to be very effective. Just a few volleys from them is going to take him off the field. And we're going to use the mobility of our gyrocopters to push these Black Orcs off the field. And we don't want to waste too much of our ammunition. You'll see here this one only has 4 shots left. I'm probably going to waste a little bit here, but at this point I'm very far ahead in the points. There was a while where if you were paying attention, the winner scientist here, he was ahead in points up against the undead player. The undead player has since pulled ahead. I have been ahead. Killing Black Orcs gets you a lot of points, so we're going to try and make sure we push all of them off the battlefield, get the points we can on the broken units, stop attacking the shattered units. That gets you no points. And we're reforming ranks. Our Dwarf Warriors, who took a lot of that damage in the very beginning, they're coming back bloody, but they're going to hold down the center of the formation for us. And one of our ranger units has used all of its ammunition, so we're going to count them as a frontline unit. A full health unit of rangers in the late game with their melee stats can be quite decent. You'll see here they have 18 melee attack, 26 melee defense. They are shielded, and 28 weapon strength, which is not bad. I mean, they're essentially, they're better than these miners. So they're 2 of these guys full health. When these other rangers run out of ammunition, they'll be great in the front line as well. Barely managed to keep my runesmith alive here with a little over 500 health, and we are going to look to engage now. The vampire account player sent over a unit of grave guard with great weapons. Not quite sure why. Maybe hoping just to grab some points off these routing Broken Tusk Mob, and they fought for a minute, and the grave guard won that. The Broken Tusk Mob are a regiment of renown that's meant to fight large units. They're great at engaging other cav, but against this type of heavily armored, armor-piercing infantry unit, they will not do great. So I notice he's coming here for a bit of a rear charge, and I'm gonna counter that in a moment. The Slayers have such speed compared to the other dwarves that you can really kind of use them almost as a very slow cav unit. So I'm not worried about peeling them off and then getting them back into position. I'm going to use a little bit of what's left of my fire on my gyrocopters to take out a few of these guys. And you'll see one of them goes down here to those missiles. And by the time the Slayers get in the battle holding their axes high, their mohawks gleaming in the sunshine, they are going to rout. They have no support left on the field, and I'm going to rear charge them with my gyrocopters, taking advantage of their speed. I'm going to pull my Slayers back. I was trying to pay attention to what was going on this side of the battlefield, and I'm going to block it, don't want to give it away. But enough so that I was aware of where I should form up, what my major risks were going to be in the upcoming skirmish against whoever was the winner here. And you'll notice Empire player is now gone. The Vampire Counts unit was the winner. And after chasing off the Broken Tusk mob, I immediately go to pick off this Grave Guard unit. I'm going to use my remaining ammunition here, and you'll see here I have 2 shots left on those guys, 9 on the others. And unfortunately for them, they're running in the perfect formation, kind of an elongated formation here, for the poor accuracy of these gyrocopters to not really matter. They're going to be finding targets whenever they shoot, and they'll be getting these kills, chasing them down. A lone Vampire Count unit, despite how healthy they are, you start picking them off like this, you get them away from their leadership, and they'll start to crumble. And I prioritize them because they are such a dangerous unit against dwarves. They're basically the best anti-dwarf infantry that the Vampire Counts possess, and I've got them isolated and I'm taking them out. So we've used all the ammunition on one of those gyrocopters. The Red Duke came in maybe to scout or hoping to get some kind of maybe pick in. I was very concerned about my runesmith, so I did pull him back in my formation, and I'm going to be keeping him high and tight, not wanting him to get sniped out. And he's going to come in again, take some volleys from my rangers. At this point, the Grave Guard are starting to crumble. There we go. And I'm going to use the... Oh god, a breath attack coming in, and I was a little worried about that. I felt a little slow. But the Iron Breakers do have very high innate magic resistance, so they're not going to mind that at all. And I move up the Scolder Guard to try and get a shot or 2 off, but he did pull him back wisely. Just took a few arrows to the face from the Rangers. Now he is near his healing cap, so whatever else the Empire player did do, he did a ton of damage to the Red Duke, enough to put him at his healing cap. So here I'm using one of my gyrocopters, the one without ammunition, to cycle charge. And using that cycle charge, we are crumbling the Grave Guard, and they're damaging themselves. For those of you not familiar with how Vampire Count units work, they are close to unbreakable, not quite unbreakable. They do suffer leadership penalties, but they'll fight to the last man. And a way to get them off the field quicker is to lower their leadership. You see here it's negative 57. It's to lower their leadership to the point where they start to crumble. The physical units start to disappear, and that's what we were able to do. Without losing a single model on our gyrocopters, we were able to do that without even using all of our ammunition. So here, this Ranger unit, I'm moving him to the front to act as a melee unit here. The Red Duke is going to take quite a few of these Scolder Guard shots to the face, very wisely summoning zombies. His zombie summons are going to be clutch for this upcoming engagement. I was surprised by how much Wind of Magic he had left, and how many breath attacks he also had left. Now, I've analyzed what's remaining of my opponent's army, and I'm a little bit worried. A full health Mortis engine is quite dangerous in a blobbed up fight, and these Karn Wraiths, I've already prioritized them with my Runesmith. I get a Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which does great damage to them. They are weak against magic damage, and they have low model count with low HP on each model. So they do great, and they're fighting exactly who I want, the Iron Breakers, who won't take almost any damage from them. Getting the Runesmith to pop his runes again, getting dead in the center of my formation to provide those buffs. Ungrim is going to go after whoever he can. At the moment it was the Mortis engine, but the Red Duke is going to get in here, and I'm going to switch my priority to him. The units that I'm most worried about are the Banshees, and I'm not even going to attempt to do damage to them. They are ethereal. All of my damage that's left is in physical form, and he's going to get 2 more zombie summons into my back line, and they are going to rout these miners who were at pretty poor health, but I would have loved it if they could have stand and fought and taken down these zombies. Now the Red Duke here, my Scolder Guard is back online. I used the Slayers in my Thane to clear them off, prioritizing that, and they're just going to stand here and shoot into the broadside of the Red Duke. Kind of an awesome shot. The Slayers, Ungrim all getting in there, mixed in with Iron Breakers, and the few remaining units of the Grumbling Guard that were left at the beginning of this. But I'm worried because even though I am killing the Red Duke, I'm taking him down. I'm pinning him in place with these gyrocopters before they did rout to fear and terror. Now he's going to be able to escape. This Mortis engine is constantly draining and healing the units of the vampire counts. So we're going to prioritize them next. You'll see we nearly get him. 300, he's slowly losing HP. He's crumbling, so he's losing his HP on his own, but I am taking my routing gyrocopters and a few remaining shots on the Scolder Guard here, and I'm gonna take him out. I'm gonna get him off the field. And recognizing that the next major threat, if I'm able to kill him, is gonna be the Mortis engine. So one of my gyrocopter units does fall there, but very worth it. You see the burning gyrocopter on top of the dragon. Cool shot. The Banshees are doing a ton of work against my lower tier ranger units. They're not able to stand and fight like these Iron Breakers are. These guys are nearly unbreakable with huge leadership. Ungrim gets in there with the help of the Scolder Guard, shooting broadside into that Mortis engine, and he takes it out. 1 HP remaining. And he is going to fall, and with Death Blow, you'll see he struck out against these Sternsmen. Now the Sternsmen have been mixed in here with these Chaff Skeleton Warrior units, and with their innate regen and their bonus versus infantry, they're probably the worst unit, the last unit on the field that I want to see, because I've got nothing that can grind through that type of unit. All my leadership has routed off. My Thane here was shattered, fighting and holding the Red Duke in place. He has only 100 HP left. The main units for the vampire counts are gone. We got the Mortis engine, we got the Red Duke, no more summons, no more healing, but he does still have 2 Banshees. Now we were able to kill the Hex race that we're fighting here, or the Kern race, I believe, but these Banshees are going to do just fine for themselves. They do have magic damage, so against the dwarves in general, but especially against the Iron Breakers, they're not going to be able to take them out quickly, let's say as if they were miners or dwarf warriors. Iron Breakers have 125 armor. Even at this point where I've lost all my leadership and most of my units, they still have 41 leadership. They're wavering back and forth. The Scolder Guard getting in there at this late stage to kind of support these Iron Breakers. Gyrocopters, I'm using them to rear charge as if they were cavalry, to hope to break the leadership on these skeletons, which I've done. They're crumbling. Getting rid of this Chaff skeleton unit that's intermixed with these higher tier Sternsman Graveguard units, breaking them off would mean that every time an Iron Breaker swings, they're going to be hitting a Sternsman and not a cheap skeleton warrior. Unfortunately, these Rangers do break off. They had probably broken off several times before, so they are shattered now. They're not coming back to help. Getting these rear charges in with the gyrocopters. The Iron Breakers, in melee combat, unit winning is what it says here. So I think, and if I understand the balance bar correctly and the way that leadership works, and I like to think that I do understand that, it's taking into account the fact that these Banshees against them are essentially wet noodles. They're not hurting them, and they're such a high tier, high cost unit that since the Banshees are somewhat of a non-factor, it's pitting them against the Sternmen, and them feeling like they're winning is what's keeping their leadership up, and what's keeping them from routing. Gotta love the Iron Breakers. Don't know how they're doing these jumping attacks, considering they're wearing full suits of armor and heavy Grommerl, the most durable metal in the lore, and they are jumping and slashing into these Sturmen. Beautiful. The Skolder Guard come back again to try and help their buddies, and the Vampire player, to his credit, is doing exactly what he needs to do, keeping his units high and tight with his remaining leadership, who do have an encouragement bonus, so they are providing leadership in an AoE to these Sternsmen, who I was nearly able to crumble there. I brought their leadership low just for a second, but then my 3 gyrocopters decided that was the time they wanted to break, and you'll see their leadership creeped back up, keeping them from that critical binding turning into crumbling, which is what I needed. I needed to get these Sternsmen off the field, stop that regen from sponging what little damage the Ironbreakers are able to output. I'm using the Skolder Guard to keep this Banshee from continuously charging into the back of the Ironbreakers, giving them that attacked in the rear penalty, but it's just not enough. I just don't. If I had even a single leadership unit alive, I think they would have stood and fought to the end. But what an amazing showdown there, from the blasting charges to the face that I was able to give to those Black Arcs in the beginning, to the Skolder Guard almost single-handedly taking out the Mortis Engine and the Red Duke with a little bit of help from Ungrim, and the Slayers and Ungrim just fighting to the end, as well as the Ironbreakers holding until the last, just like they do in the lore. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you look forward to watching part 2 of this, which will be from the Empire's perspective, and hopefully, kind of, like I said in the beginning, knowing the ending doesn't ruin it for you, because both sides of this battlefield were epic in their own right. So guys, let's go to the replay, the final screen here. Without looking too much into what other people did, I'm just going to look here at my units, and the Slayers really pay for themselves, chopping up zombies and taking out the Broken Tusk mob early. The Grumbling Guard not getting their full value thanks to an amazing Foot of Gork here, and you'll see this Shaman got 93 kills, mostly miners, mostly these miners here, but still good use of that spell. If I have to bring one spell on an Orc Shaman, that's the one that I bring. So Goblin Big Boss did exactly what he was designed to do. Yeah, I mean, he went in. It would have been great for the Orc player if he were able to pull him out afterwards and save him, but I did collapse on him pretty hard. He wasn't able to do that. And the Rusty Arrows, before they even could get in position to begin shooting, they took volleys to the face of blasting charges, and maybe even like a shot or two from the Skolder Guard, which just decimated them. I was able to use the gyrocopters to their full effect, getting all of their ammunition used, using them to cycle charge to break leadership. That's about as much value as you can ever hope to get from a 700 gold 4 model count unit, and I think they performed excellently. The Rangers, everything did their job. You know, the Dwarf Warriors didn't get a lot of kills, and that's because they were slammed against units designed to kill them, the Black Orcs here, but their holding their sacrifices would allow all of my other units to get their full value, which was very important. Ungrim racked up a nice kill count for himself, and he was there with his Unbreakable, to soak up damage from Grimgore, to soak up damage from the Red Duke and from the Mortis Engine. He was kind of the lodestone around which my entire army functioned. His kill count, had I just used him to take out infantry, would have been much higher, but you need him to 1v1 units like Grimgore, the Red Duke. That's where he thrives, in fighting those anti-large armored units. And the Thane did exactly what he was supposed to do as well: encourage the surrounding units, soak damage, and then by the end of it have killed quite a few of the enemy. So thank you guys for watching this. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's going to be my send-off, and I will say, if you like this, please subscribe, please like the video, leave a comment. I'm a new YouTube channel. I'm going to keep making these whether people are watching them or not, because that's what I enjoy doing. But knowing that there are people out there that do watch it, I would love to see that. So, alright guys, I will see you in the next one.